Daniel Reyes, a young, unassuming pizza delivery girl, enters the hallowed halls of Harvard University for what feels like the 1,000th time. She's not a student, not a professor, just another invisible figure in the background, delivering food for top slice pizza. Her red insulated jacket, worn out from the constant deliveries, marks her as an outsider, a mere cog in the machine of the Ivy League. The security guard at the side door offers a quick dismissive nod, not out of recognition, but because it's the routine. This is Daniel's reality, being overlooked, unnoticed, and undervalued. As Daniel walks down the long corridor, her steps are deliberate, calculated, as if she's solving an equation in her head with every step. Her mind isn't on the pizza orders. It's on something else entirely. She pulls out a crumpled piece of paper from her jacket pocket, a math problem she's been obsessing over for weeks. No one knows about her passion for mathematics, certainly. Not the people she delivers pizzas to. She often works late into the night, poring over equations in her tiny, dingy apartment above a laundromat. But tonight is different. Her destination is the mathematics department in Jefferson Hall, the heart of intellectual rigor and academic prestige. She's stepping into the lion's den, not as a student or scholar, but as a silent observer. The tension builds with every step she takes. Every person she passes seems so much further away from the world she inhabits. She can almost feel the weight of the university's expectations, yet as always, she's just a pizza girl, invisible and inconsequential. But deep within her, a small flame of hope flickers. Tonight, something is about to change. Professor Adrian Monroe is in the middle of an intellectual battle. A problem that has haunted him for years sits before him on the blackboard, mocking him with its unsolved complexity. His eyes dart back and forth, following the tangled web of equations, searching for the missing link that would finally bring clarity. He has worked through countless nights, consumed by this problem. His colleagues have given up, dismissing it as unsolvable, but not Monroe. He is driven by the need to conquer this challenge, to make his mark on the world of mathematics. His office is a chaotic reflection of his obsession, papers scattered, chalk dust settling on the floor, and half-drunk cups of coffee lined up like soldiers. He barely notices when the knock on the door comes. He barely hears the familiar voice of the delivery girl, Daniel, until the boxes are placed on the table. The room falls silent for a moment, broken only by the sound of chairs shifting as the group of postdocs and PhD students pause their discussions to glance at the pizza. Monroe waves them off without a second thought, his focus unwavering. Pizza is an interruption, a mundane necessity, but nothing more. He sits down, distracted, and opens the pizza box. He's not hungry. He never eats during his research sprints, but the act is automatic. His fingers lift the top of the box, and that's when he notices something odd. A small sheet of paper tucked under the slice of vegetarian pizza seems out of place. It's not a receipt, not an advertisement, just a plain sheet of graph paper with faint pencil markings. At the top, in small letters, it says, "If incorrect, please recycle this." Monroe's curiosity peaks. This strange intrusion, this unexpected detail, disturbs the precision of his world. While Monroe stares at the paper in his hands, Daniel is already several blocks away, her next delivery in mind. She had been planning this moment for days, maybe even weeks. It wasn't supposed to be a grand gesture. She wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone, least of all to Monroe. For Daniel, this was just a small, private act, a mathematical offering to a world that had turned its back on her. She knew the problem was complex, that it had eluded the brightest minds. But for her, it was simple. It made sense in a way that nothing else in her life ever had. As Daniel placed the pizza boxes in front of Monroe, she saw the professor's deep concentration, his posture hunched over a world of equations. Daniel knew that this was no ordinary math problem. She didn't speak a word, didn't make a sound. She simply slipped the paper, folded 4 times, under the pizza box, a hidden message that would set the course of events into motion. It was as though Daniel was leaving a trail for someone who might be willing to follow. And just like that, her quiet act was done. It seemed insignificant, an afterthought, just another pizza delivery to a professor who would never notice her. But Monroe would. What Daniel didn't know as she walked out into the cold night was that this simple act would change everything. For the first time in her life, she had left a mark on a world that had always ignored her. The professor, struggling with his intellectual demons, was about to stumble upon something that would force him to acknowledge Daniel's existence, whether he wanted to or not. The moment Daniel turned the corner, the door clicked shut behind her, and the real journey began. Daniel Reyes, a 22-year-old pizza delivery girl, lives a life that most people would consider forgettable. By day, she's just another face in the crowd. Quiet, unremarkable, delivering pizzas to the well-to-do residents and prestigious offices in the city. But behind her humble job lies a brilliant, self-taught mind that has spent countless sleepless nights lost in the abstract world of mathematics. Her tiny apartment, tucked above a laundromat, is cluttered with scribbled equations, mathematical books, and worn-out notebooks. Her passion for numbers has never been nurtured in a classroom or a lecture hall. Instead, it was born in solitude, with books she borrowed from the local library and online forums where she exchanged ideas with like-minded strangers. Daniel's world is one of intellectual isolation. The people around her see only the surface. The girl who delivers pizza, who smells of cheese and sauce, who wears the same tired jacket day after day. Few know of the brilliance that rests just beneath. Her life is defined by struggle, living in poverty with her mother, who works multiple, low-wage jobs. Daniel has always felt the sting of being an outsider. No one ever expected her to amount to anything more than her job, but mathematics has always been her escape, a way to silence the world and hear the rhythm of logic and reason. The world sees her as a pizza girl, but in her mind, she's a mathematician, a thinker, a creator of order from chaos. Daniel's childhood was far from the idyllic picture most people imagined. Raised in a crumbling apartment complex, she often found herself sitting on the floor of her cramped room, peering over pages of old math books her mother couldn't afford to replace. There, in the dim light of a flickering lamp, Daniel discovered a love for numbers that would set her apart from her peers. Math was her sanctuary. It was a language that spoke directly to her soul, a language free from the prejudice and limitations imposed by the world around her. School was a battleground. Teachers saw her as just another kid from the wrong side of the tracks, too quiet, too withdrawn to be a potential success. Her classmates, with their expensive clothes and prestigious backgrounds, barely noticed her. Daniel's teachers assumed that her lack of proper schooling would mean she would never make anything of herself. But what they didn't know was that Daniel was devouring every piece of knowledge she could find, from textbooks to online courses. The more she learned, the more she wanted to understand. Her talent was undeniable, but it went unnoticed, overshadowed by the weight of her social status. The world outside her window saw only a girl destined to follow the same path as everyone else, working hard just to survive. But Daniel had always refused to accept that fate. She held on to her belief that her passion for math could change her life, even when everyone around her dismissed it as a mere hobby. Her heart ached with the desire to belong to something bigger, to be seen for who she truly was, not just the girl who delivered pizzas. But in the silence of her room, with only the equations to keep her company, Daniel learned to trust in herself and her abilities. In stark contrast to Daniel's humble existence, Professor Adrian Monroe is a man who believes that intellect and status are inherently tied. At the prestigious Harvard University, he is a figure of reverence, a renowned mathematician respected by colleagues and students alike. His office is a reflection of his success, polished, elegant, and filled with accolades. Monroe has worked tirelessly for decades, climbing the academic ladder, earning his place in the elite circle of intellectuals. Yet, his arrogance is palpable. Monroe views anyone who has not followed the same rigorous, structured path of education as beneath him. He has little patience for those who haven't earned their place in academia, dismissing them as amateurs or outsiders. To Monroe, the world of mathematics belongs to those who have the credentials, the degrees, the formal training. He cannot fathom the idea of a self-taught individual possessing the same level of brilliance as someone with years of formal education. This intellectual arrogance creates a deep divide between Monroe and the world around him. He is consumed by his own theories and refuses to entertain the idea that someone from outside the academic elite could challenge his authority. Daniel, a girl from the streets with no formal education, is a far cry from Monroe's world. To him, she is invisible, a non-entity who could never possibly understand the complexities of the problems he's worked on for years. This is where the story begins to shift. The stark contrast between Monroe's elitism and Daniel's quiet genius becomes the fulcrum on which the tension will balance. As Daniel's solution enters Monroe's world, the collision between their vastly different perspectives will force both of them to re-evaluate their views on intelligence, success, and the true meaning of achievement. Monroe's fingers tremble slightly as he unfolds the piece of graph paper, the strange note at the top catching his eye. He has seen thousands of equations, theories, and formulas in his career, but something about this feels different. The simplicity of the writing, the neatly arranged numbers, and the faint markings seem to possess an elegance that no one could have expected from such an unassuming source. As he reads through the problem, his skepticism begins to melt away, replaced by something far more dangerous: curiosity. He sets down his coffee cup, a forgotten afterthought, and focuses entirely on the paper. The solution is unlike anything he's ever encountered before, an approach that feels almost too simple, too intuitive. His mind races as he begins to check the work, comparing it to the problem he's been trying to solve for years. Each step fits perfectly, a surprising elegance he's never noticed in his own methods, but there's a part of him that resists. No, this can't be right. This is just a coincidence, a fluke. The equation had defeated so many brilliant minds, including his own. How could this be solved by someone so ordinary? His gaze flicks up from the paper to the pizza boxes, wondering about the source of this unexpected solution. Monroe, still incredulous, turns the paper over, looking for a signature. Some clue that might explain how this pizza delivery girl, of all people, could have cracked a problem that had left the greatest minds in the field stumped. The more he thinks about it, the more his disbelief turns into a simmering obsession. Who is she? Why would she leave this for him? The questions gnaw at him, and as the hours slip by, Monroe finds himself caught in the gravity of the problem, unable to look away. Days pass, but Monroe cannot shake the feeling that something monumental has just happened. The solution, which had appeared as a fleeting moment of insight, now occupies every thought in his mind. He spends late nights analyzing the problem, but no matter how many times he checks the solution, it holds up. No mistakes, no false steps, just an answer as clear and undeniable as any he's ever found. Still, there's something unsettling about it. Who could possibly have solved it so easily, especially when so many mathematicians had failed? Driven by a need for answers, Monroe begins to investigate the delivery. His first instinct is to check the receipt, but it's not there. He calls the pizza place, asking for any details about the delivery. The voice on the other end offers a vague description of the delivery girl. Just a regular order, nothing special. That's it, a dead end. Monroe feels a surge of frustration and annoyance. Why can't he find her? His intellectual pride is on the line. There must be something more to this girl than meets the eye, something he's missing. His obsession grows. Every time he closes his eyes, he imagines her, this mysterious figure who had solved a problem no one, not even himself, had been able to tackle. He goes so far as to review the university's delivery logs, trying to find some trace of her. Finally, he discovers the name on the receipt, Daniel Reyes. It's a simple name, common even. The girl he'd thought of as a distant enigma suddenly feels closer, more tangible. He now has a face to match the problem, a name to attach to the puzzle he's been consumed by. But still, a cloud of doubt hangs over him. Who is she really? What's her story? Meanwhile, Daniel remains blissfully unaware of the storm her simple, quiet act of leaving a math problem under a pizza box has created. Her days are filled with the mundane tasks of delivering pizzas, passing through the streets, moving between the rich and the powerful, always feeling like an outsider. She doesn't realize that the world she's always watched from the outside is beginning to take notice of her. The professor at Harvard, the one who had been so caught up in his own intellectual world, is now obsessed with her. For Daniel, the excitement of math is always personal, always private. It's not about fame or recognition. When she slipped that folded paper under the pizza box, it wasn't an act of defiance or ambition. It was just a way of sharing her passion for the subject. She had never expected anyone, let alone someone like Monroe, to find it. It was simply an offering, something to let him see the world through her eyes, to understand the elegance she felt in solving the problem. She hadn't even signed it, feeling it wasn't necessary. The problem was the thing that mattered, not her identity. Daniel spends her nights working on more complex problems, oblivious to the attention her simple solution has garnered. She's still the pizza girl in the eyes of the world, a cog in the vast machine of society. And yet, in a quiet corner of Harvard, someone is looking for her, eager to find the person who might just change the world. The tension builds, unseen by Daniel, as Monroe's search intensifies. The moment Daniel realizes that her quiet life is about to be irrevocably altered is just beginning to take shape. Daniel spends her days delivering pizza, her movements as automatic as the rhythm of the city itself. But inside, a storm rages. Despite her brilliance, she feels trapped by the constraints of her life, living paycheck to paycheck, feeling like she'll never be more than the girl who brings pizza to the wealthy. Every day she watches the students, the professors, and the successful professionals who seem to live in a world far removed from her own. They have everything: validation, success, recognition. She has nothing but her passion for math, a gift she's never been able to share with anyone in the real world. Daniel knows her intelligence is a rare gift. She has solved problems that no one else, not even Monroe, has been able to crack. Yet, she is suffocated by the harsh reality of her world. The world doesn't care about what she knows. No one has ever taken the time to look past her uniform and see the person beneath it. As she walks through the cold streets after each delivery, the weight of rejection presses down on her. Her mother, struggling to make ends meet, has always encouraged her to keep dreaming, to keep pushing. But Daniel can't shake the feeling that she's invisible, unworthy of the opportunities she dreams about. This inner struggle is compounded by the crushing doubt that plagues her every thought. What if she doesn't deserve to be a part of the intellectual world she longs to join? What if the professors, like Monroe, are right? What if her self-taught knowledge doesn't count, doesn't matter? The emotional pain of feeling like an outsider, of constantly being overlooked, drives Daniel deeper into herself. She buries her fear and uncertainty, hiding them behind the mask of a pizza girl, telling herself that it's enough to simply be good at math, even if no one else ever notices. After days of obsessively searching for Daniel, Monroe finally tracks her down. It's a quiet evening when she answers the door to find him standing there, an expression of barely contained urgency on his face. Daniel's heart races as she looks at the man who's haunted her mind for days, the professor whose reputation she once thought would be beyond her reach. Monroe doesn't introduce himself as a professor. He's just a man, standing on her doorstep, wanting something from her. But even as the initial shock subsides, Daniel's first instinct is to pull away. She's not used to attention, especially not from someone like Monroe, someone who belongs to a world that seems so far out of her reach. She stumbles through the awkward exchange, unsure of what to say. She had never expected anyone to come looking for her, least of all someone as high profile as him. Her insecurities start to take hold. Was she really good enough to be in his presence? Could she explain the method behind the solution, which was to her so simple and natural? Monroe, for his part, is unrelenting, his fascination with her. Work has only deepened, and he presses her, asking how she solved the problem. But Daniel hesitates. She's not ready to step into the world of academia, to claim a place she feels she doesn't deserve. She resists, convincing herself that her self-taught knowledge is nothing compared to the years of formal education Monroe and others have gone through. She doesn't know how to explain that her solution was a product of intuition, of years spent, studying on her own, not in classrooms or lecture halls. Her entire life, Daniel has been told she's not enough. And now, standing face to face with the man who could make her everything she's ever wanted, she's scared to even try. Monroe, sensing her reluctance, tries a different approach. He speaks of the breakthrough her solution represents, of how it could change the way people think about mathematics. He speaks of recognition, of prestige, and of opportunity. But for Daniel, it all sounds hollow. The weight of her past, the years of living in the shadows, never quite measuring up, hangs heavily over her. She doesn't know how to trust the world that has always ignored her. Could she really step into this intellectual world that has so far rejected her, or was she just destined to remain a nameless, faceless figure? The tension between them builds as Monroe presses further, trying to coax her into revealing her methods. He insists that her solution is far too important to be ignored, but the more he pushes, the more Daniel pulls away, overwhelmed by fear and self-doubt. She thinks about her mother, about the life she's worked so hard to build, and wonders, if it's all been in vain, was she really destined to stay in this life forever, delivering pizzas to people who will never see her for who she truly is? Her doubts are suffocating. She wants to believe in herself, to take the chance, but she doesn't know how to overcome the walls she's built around her heart. Monroe, frustrated but not deterred, takes one last step before leaving. He offers her a chance. "You've solved something monumental," he says, his voice quieter now, almost gentler. "But you'll never know what you're capable of unless you take a leap." For a moment Daniel is silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air between them. The pain of rejection, the fear of failure, is almost too much to bear. The stakes are clear now. If she steps forward, she risks everything. If she doesn't, she remains trapped in a life of mediocrity. The choice is hers, and Monroe leaves her with that heavy question hanging in the air. The day Monroe meets Daniel again, it's an encounter charged with an intensity that neither is prepared for. Monroe has tracked her down, this time with a more direct approach. He walks into the small, cluttered pizza shop where Daniel works, a determined look on his face. As she notices him, a wave of tension washes over her. Her heart races, not from fear, but from the sudden realization that the world she's tried to keep hidden is about to collide with the very thing she's always feared. This is it, the moment where she has to choose whether or not to step into the light, to accept the challenge that has been thrust upon her. Monroe's eyes scan her, a mixture of curiosity and reverence in his gaze. He doesn't ask for a pizza this time. Instead, he speaks directly to her, his voice calm yet firm. "I need to know how you solved that problem." There's no pleasantry in his tone, no casual approach. He's already convinced that her solution is not a fluke, but a stroke of genius. This moment for him is pivotal. He's now determined to bring her into the world of mathematics he inhabits, the world that has always excluded her. For Daniel, however, it's a moment of utter vulnerability. She feels the weight of his gaze on her, as if he's seeing through her defenses, peeling away layers she's worked so hard to keep intact. The silence stretches between them as Daniel tries to formulate a response. She's not sure how to explain herself. The solution came to her in flashes, moments of insight that didn't feel like deliberate thinking, but more like a natural understanding of the problem. How could she explain that to him? She's not prepared for this conversation, and her insecurity floods back. The fear of being exposed, of being rejected by someone she's idolized for so long, looms large. But Monroe doesn't wait for her to find the words. His questions grow more pointed, more urgent. It's clear to Daniel now that there's no turning back. As Monroe presses further, his fascination with Daniel's approach only grows. He can't wrap his mind around the simplicity and brilliance of the solution, nor can he understand why she's so reluctant to claim her place in the intellectual world. For someone so brilliant, someone who has solved a problem that had eluded the greatest minds, Monroe feels that Daniel is wasting her potential by remaining in the shadows, working as a pizza delivery girl instead of pursuing a career in academia. But for Daniel, this moment feels like a betrayal of everything she's worked to keep hidden. The weight of Monroe's fascination is overwhelming. She doesn't want to be seen as some prodigy, some token of intellectual superiority. She doesn't want to be thrust into a world that would ultimately reject her for not having the right background, the right education, or the right credentials. Daniel had always believed that her love for math was her own secret, her own private escape from the world that had always written her off. Now Monroe's relentless questions are forcing her to confront a truth she's tried so hard to avoid. She's afraid of what her own talent could lead to. The tension between them deepens. Monroe, convinced that Daniel is hiding something, insists that she must step into the light. He urges her to stop living in the shadows, to take her rightful place in the world of academia. He offers her mentorship, a chance to prove herself, to be recognized for her brilliance. But Daniel remains resistant. She doesn't want to be part of a world that might never accept her, no matter how brilliant she is. Her sense of belonging has always been rooted in her quiet, isolated existence. She doesn't know how to be someone else, someone worthy of the accolades and attention Monroe is offering. Her self-doubt, deeply ingrained over the years, holds her back. Monroe, frustrated but undeterred, intensifies his efforts. His obsession with Daniel grows, driving him to push harder. His respect for her intelligence has crossed over into a need to make her part of the academic world, to prove that her brilliance cannot be ignored. He begins to appeal to her on a deeper level, telling her that her work isn't just an anomaly, it's the key to unlocking something far greater. He paints a picture of a future where she's celebrated, where her contributions change the landscape of mathematics forever. But Daniel's inner turmoil is at its peak. The pressure of Monroe's demands begins to suffocate her. The more Monroe pushes, the more Daniel recoils. She never asked for this attention, never wanted to be part of a system that had consistently excluded her. She doesn't know how to step into a future she feels unprepared for, and the fear of rejection haunts her every decision. The choice she's facing now feels impossible. Take the leap and enter a world that may never truly accept her, or remain hidden, safe in the quiet comfort of her anonymity. Daniel begins to withdraw into herself, questioning whether she should abandon everything she has worked for, her own identity, just to satisfy Monroe's vision of success. Her fear of failure, of being exposed as a fraud, is at war with her desire to do something bigger than herself. The stakes are higher than ever. Monroe doesn't understand the internal battle she's facing, the fears that keep her from stepping forward. For him, the solution is simple. She has the talent. She should just embrace it. But for Daniel, the cost of stepping into the light is too high. The chapter ends with Daniel's dilemma unresolved. The emotional weight of the decision lingers as Monroe walks away, leaving her with the echo of his words. You've solved something monumental, but you'll never know what you're capable of unless you take the leap. Daniel's mind has been racing ever since Monroe's last visit. The pressure of his expectations, the weight of his obsession, and the self-doubt she's carried for so long have finally pushed her to the breaking point. For days, she's been consumed by the idea that she has to prove herself to Monroe, to the academic world. She's tried to push it aside, to continue working on her own in isolation. But the pull of his belief in her, his constant pursuit, has become too much to ignore. The decision she's been avoiding is now clear. She has to prove to herself that she can take the leap. Late one night, in the quiet of her small apartment, Daniel begins to work through a related mathematical problem she's been mulling over. The answer has been there, buried beneath the complexity of the equations, but she hasn't been able to see it clearly until now. The pieces start to fall into place. Her fingers fly across the paper, scribbling down equations faster than she can think. With each step, the puzzle begins to unravel. It's a breakthrough, a solution that not only builds on the problem Monroe had given her, but also opens up an entirely new mathematical framework. It's elegant, simple, and revolutionary in its approach. For the first time, Daniel feels a sense of freedom. She's no longer working to prove anything to anyone, not even Monroe. She's doing this for herself, for the love of the subject that has always been her escape. The solution flows from her like a release, like a dam breaking. Her heart races as she realizes the significance of what she's just discovered. This isn't just another problem solved, it's a new way of thinking, a new path forward, one that could reshape everything she's ever known about mathematics. The next day, Monroe receives Daniel's breakthrough, an email with a cryptic subject line, "A New Perspective." He opens it, and as his eyes scan the paper, the enormity of what Daniel has done hits him. This isn't just a solution to the problem. They've stumbled onto something far more profound. The elegance of her work, the simplicity of her approach, makes his own years of study feel irrelevant in comparison. The mathematical community has been so focused on complex, convoluted approaches that they've overlooked the beauty of simplicity. But what Daniel has done is more than just solve a problem. It's shifted the paradigm. Monroe is both in awe and in disbelief. He can't understand how someone with no formal training, no pedigree, no connection to the academic world could have achieved this. The weight of his arrogance hits him like a ton of bricks. For years, he has seen himself as the authority in the field, the one who understands the depths of mathematics better than anyone else. But in a single email, Daniel has humbled him. His disbelief turns into a bitter realization. He's been blind to the fact that brilliance does not always come wrapped in a prestigious package. Daniel's solution isn't just groundbreaking, it's a slap in the face to everything Monroe has believed about who deserves to contribute to the world of academia. But there's more. As Monroe continues to digest the significance of Daniel's work, he realizes something else. Daniel's breakthrough is rooted in intuition, not in the rigid logic that he's spent his life mastering. The bitter truth is that Monroe can't fully understand how Daniel arrived at her solution. It wasn't through years of academic rigor or formal study. It was through something far more intangible, something Monroe had never valued: raw, unrefined genius. And that, more than anything, shakes him to his core. The twist comes when Daniel, finally ready to share her work with Monroe, meets him once again. This time, their roles have shifted. Monroe, no longer the teacher or mentor, is the one seeking answers. He's no longer the one with the upper hand, no longer the intellectual authority he once was. Daniel, on the other hand, has come into her own. She stands taller now, not because of her accomplishments, but because of the confidence that has finally taken root within her. She's no longer the quiet, unassuming girl who hides behind the pizza boxes. She is a force to be reckoned with. When she explains her new mathematical framework, one that expands on the problem Monroe had struggled with for years, Monroe is taken aback. Her solution doesn't just fix the issue, it opens up new avenues of exploration that have never been considered before. It's as though she's seen something that no one else has. Her breakthrough isn't just a solution, it's the foundation for an entirely new field of study. Monroe, now fully aware of the magnitude of her work, struggles to come to terms with the fact that someone like Daniel, someone with no formal education, no credentials, has done what he and many others failed to accomplish. But the final twist lies not in the brilliance of her work, but in the implications of it. Daniel's discovery forces the academic world to confront its biases, to face the uncomfortable truth that intelligence and talent do not belong to a select few. The system that has always prided itself on intellectual elitism is upended, and Monroe is left to reconcile the fact that he has just witnessed a revolution, one that came not from the halls of Harvard, but from the hands of a girl who had always been told she wasn't enough. The day Daniel's groundbreaking work is published, the academic world reacts with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Scholars, professors, and mathematicians from across the globe read her work, acknowledging the brilliance of her insight and the new framework she has introduced. The media begins to take notice, and Daniel is thrust into the spotlight. Headlines proclaim her as a self-taught genius, the girl who solved the unsolvable. Yet, despite the acclaim, Daniel feels a growing sense of discomfort. The attention she has always avoided is now unavoidable. The constant calls, the interviews, and the requests for her to speak at conferences overwhelm her. She's not used to being the center of attention, not used to having her name in the spotlight. To her, the real satisfaction was in solving the problem, not in the recognition that followed. The accolades and praise feel distant and almost undeserved. She never wanted to be seen as some sort of mathematical savant. She just wanted to be someone who loved the subject, someone who was respected for their work. Monroe, who had once tried to force her into the academic world, now watches with a sense of pride, yet also guilt. He's proud of what Daniel has accomplished, but he understands the price of her success. The world is celebrating her brilliance, but at the cost of her privacy, her quiet life, and her sense of identity. Daniel didn't ask for this level of attention. She only wanted to be seen as someone capable of contributing to something greater than herself. But now, she's facing a reality she never anticipated. Monroe, having been the one to push Daniel into the academic limelight, now finds himself struggling with his own feelings of inadequacy. The very system he had dedicated his life to, the system that values credentials, pedigree, and years of formal education, has been shattered by Daniel. Her raw, unpolished brilliance has not only solved a complex problem, but has introduced a new perspective that defies the conventional wisdom of academia. The moment he fully grasps the magnitude of Daniel's work, a bitter realization washes over him. He has spent decades immersed in the world of academia, believing that only those who had been trained through formal education had the right to contribute to the field. Yet here is Daniel, no formal education, no prestigious credentials, showing him a new way of thinking, a new path forward. Monroe can't help but feel a twinge of envy. He spent his career building a reputation, climbing the academic ladder, but Daniel has achieved what he could never have imagined without ever stepping into a lecture hall. This shift in Monroe's thinking is painful. It forces him to confront his own biases and the narrow view he had of what intellectual genius truly is. He now understands that intelligence is not bound by credentials or formal education. It exists in people from all walks of life, and Daniel is a shining example of that truth. But even as he acknowledges her talent, he feels conflicted. Daniel's success challenges the very foundation of his career, his sense of place in the academic world, and it leaves him questioning what really matters in the pursuit of knowledge. As the media frenzy around her continues, Daniel withdraws into herself, seeking solace in the one place she feels truly at peace, her own mind. She returns to her small apartment, the place where she first discovered her love for mathematics, and the quiet solitude feels comforting once again. She has spent so many years hidden in the shadows, uncertain of her worth. But now, with the weight of her achievement behind her, she finally feels at ease. In her solitude, Daniel reflects on the journey she has taken. She has learned that her worth is not defined by the recognition of others, but by her passion and her ability to contribute in her own unique way. The academic world, with all its accolades and prestige, will always be there, but it's not where her true value lies. Her value lies in the quiet moments of discovery, in the joy she finds when solving a problem, in the passion she feels when she writes out equations on a blank piece of paper. She knows now that she doesn't have to seek approval from anyone. She doesn't need the world to recognize her in the way Monroe or anyone else might expect. What matters is that she has found her place, her identity, and her purpose. She is not the pizza girl anymore. She is a mathematician, and that truth is hers alone to carry. The final moment of the story comes when Daniel receives a quiet letter from Monroe, a letter not filled with praise or academic accolades, but one of simple respect and understanding. He acknowledges her brilliance, not as a prodigy to be groomed, but as a peer, a fellow thinker in the world of mathematics. For Daniel, this small act of recognition is enough. She doesn't need the world's validation, but to be seen and respected by one person who understands her journey, means more than anything else. As the story concludes, Daniel stands at a crossroads. The academic world may still want to label her, to push her into a box, but Daniel has already stepped beyond those limitations. She is free, and that is her greatest achievement. As the world around Daniel continues to buzz with excitement over her breakthrough, she finds herself in a place of unexpected peace. The recognition, though still overwhelming, no longer has the same pull it once did. Standing by her small window, looking out at the city she's always known, Daniel's thoughts drift back to the days when she was just the girl who delivered pizzas. The world never expected her to amount to anything beyond that role. But now, with the recognition of her work and the breakthrough she's created, Daniel knows she's not bound by anyone's expectations but her own. For the first time, she feels the weight of her achievement not as a burden, but as a validation of her own worth. It's not the fame or accolades that matter to her, it's the quiet satisfaction that she's done something for herself, something that reflects the pure love she has for math, the thing that has always been her refuge. Daniel reflects on the quiet hours spent in her small apartment, solving equations and dreaming of a world where she could belong. In many ways, she has already found that world, not in the high-profile academic circles, but within herself. Her journey, once fraught with doubt and insecurity, has transformed her into someone who no longer seeks external approval. Daniel doesn't need the academic world to validate her genius. She now understands that real success isn't measured by how many people recognize your name. It's measured by the authenticity of your contributions, the depth of your passion, and the strength of your own belief in yourself. In the weeks that follow, Daniel begins to carve out a new life for herself. She's no longer the pizza girl, nor is she the self-taught genius that the media has labeled her as. She is simply Daniel, someone who has worked hard to find her place in a world that never seemed to have a space for her. She starts to write, not to publish, not for anyone else, but because the ideas inside her head deserve to be expressed. The notebook that once held scribbled equations becomes her canvas, a place where she can create without the pressure of expectations. Daniel doesn't walk away from mathematics, far from it. Instead, she begins to explore areas that were never part of her original journey. She starts mentoring other self-taught individuals, guiding them to understand that their worth isn't tied to the degrees they lack or the prestige they've been denied. She creates an online forum where people like her, those from unconventional backgrounds, those who have been overlooked, can share their ideas, challenge the norms, and contribute to the field in their own unique ways. This new path isn't about seeking accolades or academic approval. It's about sharing her love for math, nurturing others, and helping them realize that their intelligence is not defined by where they come from or what they have. It's about empowering people to trust in their own abilities, regardless of the doors the world has closed on them. Daniel has found her purpose, not in the recognition of her achievements, but in the opportunity to give others the same space she found for herself. The story concludes with a quiet, poignant letter from Monroe. The professor, now having seen Daniel's work unfold in ways he could never have predicted, finally writes to her, not as a mentor or a colleague, but as someone who has learned. From her. In the letter, he acknowledges not just her mathematical brilliance, but the impact she's had on the way he views the world. Monroe writes of how Daniel's work has forced him to confront his own intellectual arrogance, to rethink what it means to be a scholar, and to understand that the true value of a person's work lies in their ability to contribute to the greater good, not in their social status or academic pedigree. The letter ends with a simple, heartfelt line. "You've shown me that intelligence isn't defined by credentials, but by the courage to follow your own path. I'm grateful for your contribution, not just to mathematics, but to the way we all think about knowledge." Daniel reads the letter quietly, her fingers brushing over the words. She had never needed validation from Monroe, but to receive this acknowledgement, this respect, feels like the final piece she needed to fully understand her journey. She smiles softly, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. She no longer needs the world's approval to know that she belongs. As the story closes, Daniel reflects on her journey one last time. The pressure she once felt to conform to the expectations of others has lifted. She's no longer chasing the recognition that used to define her self-worth. Instead, she's found a quiet confidence in knowing that her work, her true work, is what matters most. With that realization, the story leaves the audience with a final thought. What would you do if you stopped seeking approval from others and began to trust in your own path?